Recording in progress.
Good afternoon, everyone. In the past few months, the city of gentle people, Dumaguete, was caught by surprise of the proposed 174 hectares of land reclamation along the offshore of Dumaguete, which would pave the way to smart city. With the advent of this unsolicited project, many of our scientists and educators issued a statement against this project of the city mayor. Before we proceed, I request everybody as Mrs. Calibo will lead us in prayer.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, the everlasting God, we praise you for the amazing, beautiful design of the entire universe. All these things display your glory. Thank you for life. Thank you for the truth and the ability to know it. Please make us good stewards of all these things. Add more to use them wisely, loving you and loving our neighbors. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Thank you, Mrs. Calibo. And this time, to formally welcome us, let's call Mrs. Rosalina Dinoy, the acting university librarian.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our fourth series of e-talk. As we provide virtual library services to our customers, our goal is to continue collaborating and have more engagement with the different colleges, programs, and departments of the university to have more avenues in information and knowledge sharing. On behalf of Sediment University Library family, let me welcome another eminent mind, Dr. Janet S. Estacion, our participants, the students, faculty, and administrators of Sediment University, as well as those joining us on social media. It is so timely that we have this e-talk on why no to propose Dumaguete Artificial Islands, an issue that needs to address so that the community will be better informed of the facts that would surface for open public knowledge and consideration. Welcome to another learning moment. This activity is accessible and open to everybody, where our participants can have an intellectual discourse with the speaker. Once again, welcome and good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Dinoy. And this time, before we'll proceed with our speaker, introduction of our speaker, I would like to remind those participants in our Zoom and FB page these rules. Please turn off your microphone and camera if not needed. Your name in Zoom shall appear coded by your honorific name affiliation. In FB Live participants, you may share or tag your friends to join this FB live stream, but please refrain from posting unnecessary comments in the comment section. For Zoom participants, questions and clarifications will be entertained after the talk. By then, you may turn on your cam and microphone, or you may use the chat box. The moderator will cue you if you are already recognized. For our FB Live participants, you may key in your questions and clarification in the comment section, but will be entertained after the talk. Please stay until the end of the e-talk. After the e-talk, make sure to fill out correctly the attendance evaluation to secure your certification of participation. Okay, so once again, good afternoon. For our speaker this afternoon, our speaker this afternoon is Dr. Janet Estacion, a full professor of biology and the current director of the Institute of Environmental and Marine Sciences here at Sediment University. Despite her administrative duties, she teaches undergraduate and graduate subjects and conducts research. She finished her Bachelor of Science in Biology here in Sediment University in 1980. Immediately after graduating, she enrolled in the University of the Philippines, Diliman, for her master's in marine biology and graduated in 1985. Her master thesis was on the seagrass 𝓽𝓱𝓮 𝓟𝓻𝓸𝓹𝓸𝓼. She obtained her PhD in zoology at James Cook University of North Queensland in Australia and graduated in 1998. At GCU, she studied giant clams for her dissertation. Her career in marine biology started, she wanted to shift from nursing to marine biology. She was lucky to be able to talk to Dr. Alcala about her plans. She then took her open water diving course in 1977 and volunteered as a research assistant to Dr. 𝓽𝓱𝓮 while taking her bachelor's degree. She then, to being a senior research assistant at Marine Science Center, it was not yet an institute then, to Dr. Miguel Cortez, while completing his master's degree. She returned to Sediment to work with Dr. Alcala with the giant clam project at the Issue Marine Lab and later taught at the Department of Biology. For her other works experience, professional affiliation, research involvements, and research publications, you may visit the link that is shown on your screen. Please help me welcome Dr. Janet S. Estacion, who will talk about the proposed creation of the 74 hectares artificial islands along the coast of Dumaguete City.
Sige ko istorya wala na. Okay, so again, so I want to talk about the opposition with regard to what is called artificial islands that is proposed in Dumaguete City coast. Okay, so let me go to my next slide. Just for you to visualize how big actually the whole proposed thing is, we have what is called, our airport is called Sibulan Airport. And its length is about 1.8 kilometers. And the bar that you see there is actually only 1 kilometer. So you can imagine what a kilometer looks like. Now, if you actually compute the area of the entire runway, that's about 6.6 hectares. Okay, so when you look at the coastline and compare what this is actually here, you can see that this is the coastline of Dumaguete, and the coastline is about 8.5 kilometers. And the coast or the proposed reclamation or artificial islands is about 7.1 kilometers of the whole coast. So meaning to say it will occupy about 85% of our coastline. Okay, so essentially you ask, what's underneath all that? There are actually 4 marine sanctuaries, like you can see here, all those in yellow, okay? And then there are coral beds, as you can see here in orange, okay? And then you can see that there are seagrass beds, the one that you can see in the shallow area, which are in green. Now, the mixture of both orange and green is actually what we call mixed bed, meaning to say they're both coral reefs and seagrass coral reefs are the other way around. Anyway, but always remember that these blue areas within that broken line is actually not empty, but there are communities which we call soft bottom communities, sandy communities. So basically, if you look at the whole thing, what is underneath that broken line is actually the one that will be directly impacted, okay? That doesn't mean to say that that will be the only areas that will be impacted, but also the surrounding areas. Okay, the effects of the ecosystem and in the fisheries and in everything else is actually placed, or you can see it and you can read it in the various position letters that are actually published and shared in the various social media. And this is where I will get some of the points that's among them. I would like you to note that this seal here is of the National Academy of Science and Technology. This is the highest academic body in the Philippines. So the guys who are there are called academicians. Anyway, so there's always also several online lectures and presentations that were made in front of the City Council of Dumaguete City. Now, I'm just showing you here what was the learning series about, and if you are interested, there's depending on, you'd be surprised what you would learn. And this is actually already on YouTube, and there's a lot of people for experts who talked about the various aspects there. Not only with the experts, but you have the mayors, and the politicians, right? The lawyers, the architects, the geologists, somebody who knows about electricity. You have environmental scientists, and of course you have the marine biologists and experts in governance and institutional reform. Okay, you can also watch the proceedings of the hearings. Several of these were actually presented in front of our local council, and you actually see this in the webpage, or no, sorry, the Facebook page of Yes Dumaguete. So there's a lot of sources that are available in the web. Okay, so what will I discuss here? I will discuss basically very briefly, or else it will take forever to cover everything. What are the direct effects on the ecosystems itself? And secondly, I will talk about the indirect effects. One is siltation and sediment plumes, the decline in the fish catch, the loss of scenic views, and the other potential impacts, which I will actually go into one by one. Let me emphasize that these points have already been discussed in detail by the various aspects as expert, and I'm just basically, summarizing them, or probably making them more easier to understand. Okay, so let me talk about direct effects on the ecosystems. And I'd like to read what Dr. Asbisamis wrote, that there is no doubt in my mind that this is going to be a monumental ecological disaster. Okay, it's going to be the whatever is hidden, okay, of marine ecosystems, and to just for you to visualize how big it is, it's about 4,000 basketball courts. Okay, most of us haven't been to Luneta, so we cannot sort of think about how Luneta is big. Anyway, so to go back, okay, refer back to the whole thing. Hang on. Okay, sorry about that. My throat is a little bit dry. But anyway, these are the reefs that are within the coastline of Dumaguete. When the mayor said there are no reefs in Dumaguete, which he actually said in national media, people immediately went and jumped into, the various areas in Dumaguete and took photos and actually posted them on social media. Okay, some of them were later taken very much later, like this one here. But this one is a very nice photo that really gets to show you what it is like from the sea directly to the land. Okay, now there are also seagrass beds, and these are some photos of seagrass beds. These photos I grabbed from Facebook posts, and I'm sorry if I cannot actually individually acknowledge you. Okay, now so they say, what if you bury everything and just rehabilitate it, redo it, relocate, rehabilitate, and relocate. Okay. Now, but always remember that we have to remember that for marine ecosystems to be established, it takes millions of years. Okay. And what are the studies right now? The studies are, this is, if you look at the little dot over there, that's 0.1 hectare. Okay. And that is the usual size for restoration project. Now, the biggest one is about 1 hectare. And this is what the scientists know and the scientists actually have sort of have knowledge of. Okay. Now, so when you look at that, okay, this cost here, okay, this one here is shown as about 27 million for 3 years. Now, why 3 years? Because it takes about 3 years for it to be sustained. Why times 30? Because it actually is the normal time for what we call reef recovery. Okay, so if you multiply that at the magnitude of 100 hectares, you're talking about 2.7 billion pesos for the first 3 years, and a total of 57 billion pesos. UPMSI, or University of the Philippines Marine Science Institute, actually is one that's very, very involved in restoration technologies. And they came up with a statement that current coral restoration technologies cannot be used to rehabilitate, to recreate, or to replace entire coral reef ecosystems. So we should keep that in mind when we're talking about replacement and rehabilitate and relocate. Okay, so we asked the question, why should we care? So what if we bury them? Okay, why should we care? And we talk about something that is called biodiversity. If you met the term biodiversity, Philippines is within what is called or known as the Coral Triangle. And when you say Coral Triangle, it's actually a triangle that is made that includes Philippines, Indonesia, a part of Australia, Malaysia, and areas east of the Philippines. Okay, and this area, when you say marine biodiversity, it means that the more you approach the triangle, the higher is the species richness. Meaning, what are the kinds of species that are there, and how many kinds of species. Now, within the coral triangle, you can see this is within the coral triangle that you have colors here. Okay, that is within the coral triangle. As you can see, that's Philippines over there. But note that this area here is actually quite a different color. Okay, now, so let us look at within the Philippines. So this is again a magnification of the previous picture. Now, so when you look at the Philippines itself, notice that the yellow color here indicates that it's actually very high in diversity. So where is Dumaguete? We're in that yellow line. Okay, therefore, as Dr. Kent Carpenter would say, Central Visayas is then the center of the center of the center of biodiversity in the world. That is why we should care. Now, another thing is we have what is called endangered species, extinct species, and these categories are actually listed with what is called the IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation in Nature, and they have what is called a red list. Now, in the red list, the species around the world are actually classified as that of least concern, threatened, and in threatened you have vulnerable, you have merely threatened, and you have endangered. Okay, and then you have the extinct category, which basically means they're not found in the wild anymore. Okay. Meanwhile, there is also what is called the CITES list. Okay, and the CITES list is actually as an appendices, and the first appendix is threatened with extinction, etc., etc. Now, I'd like you to look at that list because by the way, if you notice that Republic Act 9174 actually recognizes Silliman University as part of the committee that will look into all these IUCN lists together with UPMSI and a lot of other academic institutions. Okay, to proceed, within Dumaguete, there is actually a list of corals, species that was identified by Clarissa Reboton. She's one of the foremost coral taxonomists in the Philippines, and she's currently a faculty on leave at the IEMS, and she has identified about 165 coral species alone from Bantayan to Bantayan and Piapi. Okay, and among the 165 species, 10% of which are threatened and 32% is near threatened. And some of the photos here of these guys have been are shown, and I would like to thank the divers, the enthusiastic divers, for actually helping us collect this data set these pictures and very, very nice photos. Thank you guys. And then Dr. Dolar, who's also recognized as the formal authority in Philippine marine mammals, found out that there are about 15 species of marine mammals within Dumaguete and nearby waters. And this includes a lot of the species that are listed in the IUCN Red Data List. And this includes the melon-headed whales, the Fraser dolphins, and of course the blue whale. The blue whale is such a big whale, and they actually, amazingly, if you look at the background of the photo by Mr. Qiongson, that is the Dumaguete coast over there. And he actually first saw this in 2016, but it was also cited in Darwin in 2000, 2017 and also 2019. Okay, we hope you visit again, guys. I think this guy is called Bugao. And then if you look at the right side of your screen, notice that you have this one here. And this is based on the analysis of Dr. Dollar's data, which he provided to. And shown here is that this is the largest concentration for all our surveys. This here is the largest concentration of where you find marine mammals. So notice that in between offshore of Ďakan and Bowen. But notice that there is also a slight coloration in Dumaguete City. And this means to say that there is also a significant amount of marine mammals within the coast of Dumaguete City. Okay, another thing is with Philippine sea turtles. Okay, and notice here, that's the hawksbill turtle. Notice the colors. That's both red. And what does that mean when it's red? It says here, it shows here the status. Okay, and that means to say within the CITES list, in the CITES protection is red in level, and the IUCN status is red. This is a pity because when some time ago, hawksbill turtles were actually common within the coast of Negros, and in fact, we have released a couple of them. I think at Apo before, because till then, every time they see a sea turtle, then it's food on the table. But now that people are more educated, they tend to let them go, or if they're in trouble, they actually sort of ask the institute to actually help them. Again, I would like to thank all the divers for actually posting all these pictures in the social media, so they would be readily available for us as thing. So then, why is this also important? Because as you can see, this is what you can see here is the book, and this is a manual of the revised procedural manual for what we call the DAO. DAO for that deals with the ECC and environmentally critical projects. And so the table on your right actually shows you on the top this is what are considered as environmentally critical projects. So note that included here is actually major reclamation project. Therefore, it is an environmentally critical project. Secondly, notice that there are sanctuaries again. So it's an environmentally critical area. And there are species that are actually endangered and threatened. So it fills up a lot of the categories within the list. Okay, now what about the indirect effects? Now with the indirect effects, you can actually see that this has something to do with all these that I have listed, and I will go through them one by one. Okay, so this photo here is taken from Banilad Marine Sanctuary. And as you can see, this photo was taken by Untarial, or yeah, I'm sorry, I cannot see your name anymore because I have all these bars that are beyond, my código. Okay, but if you can see here, that's 20 years of protection in Banilad Marine Sanctuary. That's the oldest of the marine sanctuaries in Dumaguete City. And from the analysis of Dr. Rene Abisamis, with the type, this is a video actually, this is a video grab. And if you look at the video, you can see that these are actually what we call sturgeon fishes. They're the 𝓭𝓸𝓸𝓸𝓸𝓸𝓸 and the 𝓭𝓭𝓸𝓸𝓸𝓸𝓸 actually are long-living fish, and they tend to be quite big. And so what this means when you have these kinds of sizes of fishes, this means to say that number one, the protection is effective. Number two, you have large fishes. Large fishes tend to live longer. And if they live longer, then once you get, that big size, then they are now mature. And that means to say if they are mature, actually mature, the area is now a source for fish larvae. Okay. Now, the expertise of Dr. Abisamis is actually on what we call connectivity of marine protected areas. And this is a figure from his talk. And as you can see, like this is actually Apo Island, okay? And from his study, he actually found that there is actually species. This we actually suspected, that some NPA can actually serve as what we call sources for larvae to actually replenish the fishes. So you can see all those arrows that are going out. Some of the larvae go sort of, make stopping points. So they can stop and grow in another marine protected area, as what you can see here. And so we call this again as sources and the destinations as sinks, okay, because they receive the larvae. And this interaction is very synergistic, okay? So I also found out that the interconnectivity is within a 35-kilometer radius. Now, I'll show you later on how he came up with this sort of conclusion. Okay, so there has been, that the coast is not producing any more fish. So the fisher folks were, very offended and took to the social media again and posted all the fish that they caught. And so you have all this very nice, this is lapu-lapu over here. This is a jack over here, and so on. This is a rainbow runner here. So they all started to post this in social media just to prove that there is actually fish within the coast of Dumaguete City. Okay, then we have, again, people proving that they fish, which you can see here. Okay, you note that the other building before, that is what you see, that crane over there. And these are the fisher folks that are fishing directly in front of the coastline. Okay, similar here, you can see the coastline. It's not only fish that is actually being utilized or extracted from the coastal marine environment, but also invertebrates like salawaki particularly. There are some areas wherein the sea urchin or salawaki, which is Lepusnis gatila, is collected from the seagrass beds, and then they're broken, and then the gonads are actually placed and then mixed and then developed, I think, fermented to become what we call dayuk. We call that dayuk in Mindanao. I don't know what they call that here. Anyway, Dr. Eileen Maipa actually did a study on the fisheries of this group here, and she found out that notice that this is the fish city market supply in 2018, and this is about 9,000 metric tons. Okay. And what is there are actually Decapterus, which are basically ihalason, tulingan, manulsog, pulang ikog. These are the the sellers, and the oxys. These are the carangids. Okay, and this is the bulk of the composition in the fish market. They're essentially second class. Now, and she looks at what is the production of the city municipal fisheries. And she found out, as you can see here, that's about 32 to 40,000 in the past 2 years. But this one here is actually just an estimate because the data set is not complete. You will probably ask why you have two lines over here, the fishes or the catch is not reported because there's a lot of people who buy the fish directly coming from, the fisher folks when they actually arrive. There's a lot of people waiting there already. And some of the fishermen actually sell their catch beside the market. And so this is not reflected in the whole formula. And that's why Dr. Maipa is already taking it into account in this adjustment. Okay, now this is to show you what kind of fish or the fisher folks that are the fisheries of Sigus bed and coral reefs. I'd like you to know, okay, the red thing. These red lines or columns actually informs us that the fishermen, most of them, okay, at least in Look, Mangnao, and Panilan, also in Piapi, they do not have boats. Okay, I don't know what they do if they don't have boats. Probably they don't own boats. Okay, so they have no boats. They're mostly gleaners and spear fishers. That's why you saw there that you have all these big fish that caught, and this is mostly by spear fishing. Okay, some of them are fish vendors. Now, however, you look at the dark blue one, this is for not those with non-motorized boats, meaning they just have the usual banca and then they just paddle around. And as you can see, if you have a non-motorized, if your fisher folk is using a non-motorized boat, the fishery is shallow because you don't need to go far. If you need to go far, then you need to have your inboard motor. Okay. So what does all this result mean? It means, okay, let me just read a little bit. The annual fish supply of Dumaguete based on 2018 data from our agricultural city office is estimated at 9,000 metric tons. Now, if you look at the coastal fishery products, which is estimated what is needed, it's about 40 metric tons. Sorry, excuse me. Okay, sorry about that. So when you look at it, where was I? So the cost, the 40 metric ton production of Dumaguete is only about less than 1% of what is needed in the city. So what does this mean? When you look at 40 metric tons, that's also a significant amount. Although just only a little bit of what is actually needed by the city, because the city needs about 9,000 metric tons. But however, if you look at it in the point of view of what is called the Philippine Food and Nutrition Research Institute, that says that on the average, a Filipino would eat about 98.6 grams of fish and fish products per day. Now, you sort of compute this will feed something like about 400,000 residents in a year. Okay? Now, so you can say then, or one can say then that this is actually a legitimate source of food and people are being nourished by it and people are getting incomes out of it. Therefore, even if it's just less than 1%, there are beneficiaries to it. Okay, so if it's less than 1% of the market fish supply in Dumaguete, is it then negligible? And I always say, you may think it's negligible, but let's look at the quality of the fish. Number one, is very fresh, okay? And you know it's very fresh because you saw it come in from the sea. So that's one big, qualification that we have to see. If you get into the market, you don't even know how many times the fish has been soaked in ice. And so we say double dead na. Now, also, when you look at the considerations that even if it's negligible kuno, there are people who are benefiting from them. These are people who use them as, food daily, okay? And there are associated income earners, like what we call the suroy vendors. They angkat. They get from the fishermen a certain volume. They put a little bit, and then they deliver that to the houses with a likely higher price. Okay. So the other indirect effect, which I would actually like to look at, is what is called the sedimentation and sediment plumes. Okay. If you're interested, there's these guys over here that talked about it. Okay. So what they actually looked at was what are the types of dredgers that will actually get the sediments. If you're interested in this aspect, I would advise you to listen to the talk of Dr. Emmanuel. This Dr. Emmanuel actually made a modeling of this, and he actually showed a video as to how all these dredgers work and what are the limitations to these dredgers. Now, since these guys have to get sediment from the bottom, then what will happen is that they have actually a sort of a hand that extends to the bottom to get sediment. But notice that this long arm over here is very limited, so it limits the depth as which the dredging can occur. Any deeper, di na siya makakolekta. Okay, so how are the plumes? Okay, the disturbance underneath. Once this draghead, okay, sweeps to the bottom, the sediment is actually sucked. Okay, it's sucked into this area over here, but what they actually need is larger grain sediments. So whatever is fine grain, they actually sort of let that go in an overflow. So that's what you have here, and the same over here. Okay, so there's already some sort of a sorting. Now, notice that there is also the propeller wash that actually also resuspends the particles. So this is, seen from aerial view. And this is, in most cases, how they actually move the sediment that is collected towards wherever they are doing the reclamation. Sometimes they actually have actual chains or lines that would deposit the collection deeper. I think I have a slide for that later on. Okay, so let me just backtrack a little bit or show you this example over here, wherein we actually have what is called Mischief Reef. And Mischief Reef, that's our Philippines. And if you focus on that, that's Mischief Reef over there. And this is Palawan. Therefore, it's at the western side of Palawan. Okay, so this is part of the talk of Dr. Carpenter. And this is Mischief Reef in January of 2012. Note that the area inside is very dark. And this means to say that the water is very clear. Okay, this area that is lighter in blue, that is actually shallow water. Okay, and once the reclamation, if you can say, started, but it's very hard to use reclamation because when you say reclaim, that means to say ikaon siya sa dagat, then you're claiming it again. But this is not the case over here. But anyways, that aside. In 2012, notice that there is now the building of this island here, and notice that the inside, which used to be very blue, is now heavily there's heavy and severe sedimentation. Okay, so there's the work of the 𝓭𝓸𝓸𝓸𝓸𝓸𝓸𝓸, and this was what I was talking to you about, when they would have lines, okay, that would deposit the sediment directly into where they are reclaiming. But notice that there is still a lot of siltation going on, so you cannot escape it. Okay, so what's the significance of this to the whole 174? This is where Dumaguete is, and that's where it is. Okay, and there is a strong current, which we call Bohol jet, that passes to the coast of Negros. Okay, this is the prevailing current. However, there are also currents that go into 𝓭𝓨 Strait. Note that 𝓭𝓨 Strait is a protected seascape and landscape. It is what we call a NIPAS. So the reclamation is actually very near both two NIPAS, the 𝓭𝓨 Strait for whales and dolphins, and the Apo Island protected landscape and seascape. And this one is, again, very small, okay? Apart from that, apart from the two NIPAS, there are actually several locally managed marine sanctuaries over here. So it's not only the Negros coast that is directly affected, but also the neighboring areas. Okay, this is an illustration for you for what we call the Bohol jet. And just to orient you, that's Negros coast, okay? That's the tip of Cebu. This is Bohol, Siquijor. That's Bohol, and this is Panglao over here. And Apo is that one over here. And this one here, as you can see, that's already Mindanao. Okay, so if you look at the intensity of Bohol jet, it actually passes the coast of Negros Oriental. Okay, it comes in from the Pacific Ocean and then passes through major islands, goes underneath Bohol Sea, Bohol Island, okay, and goes around Siquijor along the coast of Negros Oriental. Sometimes during the month, that current is very, very strong, and sometimes during the year, it's quite weak. If you're interested again in this, I'd like you to look at, you can see this link over here and search for it for Bohol jet. This is a compilation by Jasper Maipa. Okay, now, so to go back to the sediment plume, this is where Dr. Jorge actually made a very comprehensive study. This is what we call Pantawan 2. Okay, this was according to people, according to Bulong, this was the trial. And notice when they started that reclamation, so-called, okay, I would call it claiming of the sea. Notice that these are the areas that are affected by the sedimentation. This whole thing is now extended until here, okay, in front of Bethel. So it's huge. Even if you think it's still small, it's huge already for us. Now, what he wants to say here is that you see that this is the near field zone, which is essentially this one, which is dark, and the fading color, meaning which shows you the direction, and so that is going south of Dumaguete, and Apo Island is south of Dumaguete. Okay, so we made a modeling with all the values. This is basically a chemical engineer. And he played with that modeling, and he found out that if the Chinese suction dredger will be used, it will actually have the reclamation would be about within the radius of 35 kilometers. Why? Because they have the as I mentioned before, the reclamation or the boat itself or the dredger itself, the depth to which they can collect sand or sediment is actually very limited. And for those of you know, if you look at this, the darker, this one here, that's very deep areas already. Areas that are inaccessible to the dredger. So they will keep, because they cannot dredge in one place. What they do is they go along the coast and collect. Okay, but they cannot collect very far. Otherwise, it would also be not economical anymore. Okay. Now, so what are the effects of these sediment plumes and turbidity? Note here that this gives value, tolerance of coral reef systems to chronic suspended sedimentations are. So this is now what is the tolerance limit. So it's 10 milligrams, that's the lowest value, and 100 milligrams is the highest value. Note that it may be very, very wide in range, but it actually also depends on the kind of species that that will compose the reef. And some individual coral species actually will die already when the sediment, suspended sediment concentration is at 30 milligrams per liter. And this is only after a few weeks of exposure. Okay. So, and then corals cannot survive at high turbidities for 4 to 6 weeks. Okay. So you're talking about tolerant and very sensitive species again. So again, you cannot make this, you know, very understatement. So it depends on your reef. But in most cases, usually if the reef is located in a very clear water area, this of course implies that you have all the area, kaya wala man siya sedimentation. So most likely what you would have are species which are very sensitive to suspension. Okay, so I brought this back because there is a significance to this. Because this is Dr. Rene's study. And notice that over here, okay, this he actually did you trace you know, who are related to what. And so you can see here that there's a DNA pedigree analysis, which he essentially did. So we looked at kinsay mag-igagaw, who are relatives. And he found out that there are a lot of DNA transfers, even as far off as Bohol. Okay. Now, it's very much concentrated here, and there are implications to this. So what are the implications then? Look, there's even again the 35-kilometer radius. Okay. So there are about 46 marine protected areas within a 35-kilometer radius of Dumaguete City. And what Dr. Emmanuel sort of hypothesized is that the where they will be collecting also the sediment would be within the 35-kilometer radius. So I think you can already sort of see what is, you know, what is the implication here. Meaning, you know, within the 35-kilometer radius, we have the 46 marine protected areas that have been known to be interconnected with each other genetically. And this is where the sediment is also going to be extracted. So that's one big problem over here. One of the direct indirect effects that we actually don't look at is something that we do not pay for, like the scenic views. You have all these photos in Facebook, very, very nice photos of the sea or parts of the sea and our boulevard. And you don't get to see that. And I think to put a price on it, it would be like somebody who's coming here for a vacation. Let's say somebody from Manila comes here for a vacation, for the views, for, you know, for what is available in Dumaguete. And so what do you pay for? You pay for your plane fare, you pay for your food, you pay for your accommodations, and here we have it for free. So what this is one of the figures that I saw. We're in probably in the future when there's that island in front of us, we'll probably just have a big screen and hiding all that to remember what was there in the past. Now, so what are the potential effects? So I'm talking about these two factors. Okay, so Dumaguete before was not known to actually have. I hope I have still enough time. Okay, thank you. And so before, Dumaguete was not known to have, lino. And then, lo and behold, we had a big surprise of our life, wherein we had a 6.7 magnitude in 2012. And so here, they actually found out that there are active faults within at Negros. And this is called the 𝓽𝓱𝓮 And there's one that runs within the southern part of Negros, where past Dumaguete City, along Dumaguete City, and this is called the 𝓽𝓱𝓮 𝓟𝓸𝓹𝓸𝓼. Now, let's not go into the geology again. If you're interested in this, you can look at the geologist side point of view, and I think Moses Alcala talked about it. And this is actually a plate movement. And what happens when you have earth meant to be moved? Typically, the grains are packed loosely, and they're held together by friction. Now, once you have shaking, this destabilizes the sediment itself as you're shaking it. And so what happens is that the spaces between the sand grains actually become farther and farther. And so if you have any weight on top of that, it's going to sink. Okay. Now, and if you look at the hazard map for liquefaction in Dumaguete City, you notice this is the coastal area, so that is already very vulnerable. Sorry. And so here's the basically remembering Ruby Tower. And this is by Dr. Rodolfo, who is actually has a lot of publications with regard to reclamation in Manila Bay. And what again, notice that this is within the river system, and this occurred in 1968, but it was such a big thing because it was the first time that they had destruction, that kind of destruction in a massive scale. The same thing happened in Giwan. Okay, notice that the house here, that's the roof already, and that's the sediment. This is in Baguio. Okay, there's a toppling effect, the pancake effect that they're seeing. So meaning to say, whatever is standing on, nagloosen siya, and that's why mahagsak. So this is in Negros Oriental after in 2012, after the earthquake that we had. Okay, now let's look at land use, land subsidence, and flooding. Okay, now what is land subsidence? Okay, usually we get our water source from a well. Okay, and what happens is that as water is pumped out at a faster rate, wherein they are replenished, what happens is that the natural ground will actually start to sink because there's lesser pressure underneath. So this happens when they are overpumped. There's too much pumping. There's that's not enough replenishment. Now, so the most famous case of this is actually in San Joaquin Valley in California, wherein they actually annually measure the sinking rate, and over 25 years, that's about 4.8 feet. If you can imagine how big, how the distance, it's like, if you're 5 feet tall, it's a little gamay-gamay na sa imong kataas. Okay, So to go back, okay. So I looked at what rates were occurring within the Asian cities, and Indonesia, particularly Jakarta, actually wins the crown for having the highest rate of sinking, which is 25.4 centimeter per year. 25.4. Now, if you look at your fist, that thing there is about 10 centimeters already. So what is 20 centimeters? You put your two fists together, okay? And that's what you have. That's per year. Now, in Bangkok, they have a rate of 2 centimeters per year. However, they're looking at it very carefully because there's a lot of very high buildings. And what happens is the weight of the building actually causes more sinking. And in Manila, we have a rate of 10 centimeters per year. So again, what is 10 centimeters? That's the length of your fist. Now, so the biggest case or here for flooding and land subsidence and sea level rise is actually located in Bulacan. And this was featured in GMA, and you can see that the area looks like underwater. Okay? And as explained by Dr. Langmay, this is not just a case of flooding due to land subsidence, but it was multiplied because of sea level rise. Okay? So the question arises, with the Dumaguete scenario, where will the island get their water? Now, question, is there enough in our water tables to replenish what is the demand? I don't know. I mean, if you look at water pressure in our houses, it's not even as strong as it used to be. So will this result in our domestic water supply becoming salty? Another thing is when you have lesser amount of water in your water table, it causes seawater intrusion. So seawater intrusion is basically the pressure of the sea mixing with the underwater water table. And we have a lot of water tables that are very shallow, located along the coast of Dumaguete. In fact, in Sibulan, there used to be a spring over there that opens in the Lapyahan, meaning where the waves break. There used to be women who used to, do their laundry over there, meaning to say that water is very fresh. I don't know if it's still there. So, will land subsidence be a thing that we have to think about? And I got a hold of the proposal or the unsolicited proposal of EM Puerto, and I looked at where the water is going to come from. Note, the proposed system can be connected to Dumaguete City Water District Distribution System. So they will get the water from our system. Okay, things to think of. Now, I'd also like you to note that it's not only the water system that's going to be tapped, but also our power supply and our the NPLDT. So just things to think about. Okay. So flooding, right now in Dumaguete, we have areas wherein if there's a little flood, there's flooding that's going on. Now, one of the main exits for rainwater in Dumaguete City is what we call Banica River, that river over there. Note, this is from Google Map, and this length, the width of this area here is actually 20 meters, and a mouth where you have a buildup of a river delta is only 9 meters. This scale here is 30 meters, which I will want you to know because this is actually what we call the gap between the mainland and the proposed artificial islands. Okay, this is Banica in after Sendong, so that's where a lot of our water come out. And this is during a drought, and this is during a semi-normal day. I need to take more photos of Banica. I cannot find it in the net. Anyway, so the question arises then, will the proposed artificial islands act? Because if it's going to be here, notice the 30 meters, that's a gap. So if you put it here, what happens to the outflow of the water here? So will it act as a barrier to the outflow of the river? Now, when you look at their drawings, then if that's Banica River over there, it seems na murag pwede siya mugawas diya. But again, you know, these are all drawings and it's not even drawn to scale. This is the gap that I was talking about. So if that's a 30-meter gap, but the mouth here is not 30 meters, that's only supposed to be 9 meters. So you cannot trust the map then. So I question, like, what is the width of this channel? It's the same thing with the other drawing. So there really needs to be study about this, you know. You just cannot present it in the proposal, you know. I mean, I don't know. This map, this thing here was not even drawn to scale, which would be quite, you know, masabtan unta sa layman, no? Not technical. And the technical aspects, I looked at it, I cannot see the values. Anyway, so let's go to my last part of my talk. What are the lessons that we have learned from all this? Okay. So number one, that local residents have to be able to vocalize their opposition to a project. It all started with, you know, our paper. We're in, asan naman to nakabot? It started with our paper, basically when we said we oppose this one here, okay? And our reasons for the opposition. And then came the statements of other individuals and other schools, other, you know, groups, like the coalition here actually has is a group of people or organizations that's mainly youth. And so 𝓟𝓸𝓸𝓹𝓸𝓸𝓸, for example, here is actually it's a network of 43 NGOs. Okay? Now, so then what is the next lesson that we learn? We have to bring experts in to help us understand and to educate people. So you have the marine biologists, the coral experts, the fish experts, and then we have the architects that came in, the lawyers about the law, the environmental scientists about valuation, meaning what is the cost if you lose it, and sedimentation. And then you had the geologists, and then we had the governance people. Okay, they all talked about the whole, it's several aspects. So we're talking here not only on the aspect of the reef itself and the seagrasses and the ecosystem, but all the other aspects that are involved. Now, what are the other lessons that we have learned? That we have to involve all stakeholders and provide them with a venue for expression. Sometimes kasi ang stakeholders is the pobre mangguni, di namin may istorya. But if you provide them with venues like women's group, okay, the fisher folks, the youth, and the pedicab drivers, you give them a venue, they can express themselves. Okay, another thing is we learned was that if you have an opposition, dapat it should be sustained. Okay. Right now we have like Friday silent protest. I remember when we protested about the 1.2 hectare reclamation in front of Silliman University. The whole fight took about 7 years. That's just for 1 point something hectare. We hope that this will not take as long. Anyway, so also we have to involve the media. So we have radio announcers, basta from the Lodi, these are all in radio announcing. And then we have to involve the writers, okay? And we can initiate petitions. Okay? This is a petition that was started in July, and there's still people are signing up to it. This is the new one, which is not not well understood as opposed to this one over here. Okay, what are the other lessons that we have learned? If there are interest groups, let them involve them. Like the divers, for example, they do something, they contribute something in raising awareness, sharing what they know, sharing, we appreciate their efforts because we cannot monitor all the reefs within, but you can train them to actually do some stuff because a lot of them have what we call citizen scientists. They have already enough knowledge to do data collection. Okay, and also that as an example, this is actually our famous Ocean 6 ladies. They crossed Tanyon Strait from Sibulan to Liloan, and that is the nearest point between the two islands, and that's about 6.4 kilometers. And they swam that, okay? And they have a group which are mostly swimmers, and for their part, they actually did a 5-kilometer protest swim along the coast of Negros. So here again, you can bring in a lot of people to your movement. Okay, and then you can have, Yata, for example, is a youth group which is doing theater work, and they have YouTube videos wherein they sing their own compositions. Hope here is actually a TikTok artist, and she has all these followers. And then you have the artists who are very, very good photographers. This one here and this one here. And you have the animators who also came up with, a version of Nemo. And you have, people, there's a cartoon series already within one of the media outlets. And you have people who have, very good in actually illustration. So they all play a part. In fact, I couldn't find that, at least capture the video. There was actually no, he's not a singer. He's a musician. And he was actually playing while sunrise was coming in. And he was, I forgot. I think he played the flute or something. But anyway, so another thing, we have to remember that, our election is coming in. So we have to know the stance of our politicians. So some of them are pro, some of them are, anti. You decide. Now, on the last note, before I'm done with this, there is a flood control project for the flooding that occurs in Dumaguete City. But this has been discussed, but it has never been implemented. So there's a lot of things going on there. Another thing I'd like to point out, that in Dumaguete, we actually have, rotating brownouts. Why? We have no idea. But yesterday we had three brownouts. One in the morning, one in the afternoon, one something like, before midday, and one noontime in the middle of my class. So it's um, our current power supply is hardly even very stable enough for Negros Oriental. So what more if you add 174 hectares? Another thing they argue is that they want jobs, because this supposed activity is actually going to generate jobs. And this is the irony, because there were 4,262 jobs that were opened by the Department of Labor. And what happens is that of these jobs, only 10 were hired. What does that mean? There's a monumental mismatch in the skills as opposed to the jobs that were available. If you look in our system here, even the tinderas in Robinson and in the various newly opened businesses are not Bisaya. They're not from Dumaguete. They're either outside of Dumaguete or they're Ilonggo. So what's happening? Their jobs, but people are getting the jobs are not from Dumaguete. Okay. So daghang salamat for listening. And if you have any questions, feel free to do so. I'll leave the floor to Annalisa. Where is my stop sharing?
Thank you very much, Dr. Estacion. At this juncture, if you want to any questions, we will entertain this time. You can on your microphone, those who are some participants, and also your videos. You can chat us. Is there any questions? Huh? If you have any questions, you can message us in the chat box. Next question.
Everybody must be sleeping or eating.
Proceed to give our certificate. Okay, so if there's none, I know you already understand everything that Dr. Estacion is sharing with us. We are so thankful, Dr. Estacion, for enlightening us why we need to say no to the proposed 174 hectares reclamation. And at this point of time, I will give our certificate to our speaker. Assessor. Okay. Certificate of recognition is presented to Dr. Wala, sir. It says, Silliman University Library System Certificate of Recognition is presented to Dr. Janet S. Estacion, in grateful recognition and sincere appreciation as resource speaker during the e-talk with the topic, Why No to the Proposed Dumaguete Artificial Islands, held on October 13, 2021 via interactive Facebook Live and Zoom. Signed, Assistant Professor Rosalina D. Dinoy, Acting University Librarian, and Dr. L. Jude Paul LQP, Vice President for Academic Affairs. So thank you so much, Jan. Okay. kindly fill out, those who are in Zoom, kindly fill out evaluation in the chat box for you to get your e-certificates. Once again, I would like to thank those our participants and Dr. Janet Estacion for being with us this afternoon and for all the knowledge that he imparted to us. And we know that this is the first time that we heard nga, nakaingon mi nga, ha? Nga Center of Biodiversity ang Visayas. No, if we don't have this itok, no, we will not know na Center di ay ang Visayas for the biodiversity. And we are so thankful and grateful na we learned a lot this afternoon. And thank you. And we remind everyone for another e-talk that we have on November. So I hope you will continue to join us every time we have this information, no, knowledge for us to understand more those things nga kinahanglan nato i-understand. Thank you so much.